There was no way that I could apply to be, top 10 people under 40 years old to watch. Like, they had to see me. And then they called me, the governor's office called me and asked me and invited me and said, would I be interested in this opportunity? I'm just like, but I'm also so real and authentic. And I think that is one of the things that they really liked about me, that although I did a lot of work in political communications, I show up as an artist. I show up as who I am. Like, I'm very outspoken and I have a very vibrant presence. And I think that they appreciated it.
Okay. So where along this journey did it evolve into you creating Women in Media?
Yeah.
All right. So boom, welcome back to another episode of the Black Caliber podcast. And today we have Danielle P. Jeter, a dynamic change agent, visionary leader. She's founder of AOI Events and PR, meant to create opportunities not just for herself, but for her entire community. With over 12 years of business ownership, Danielle has curated over 400 events, and her influence stretches across media, politics, and community development. She's also the founder of Women in Media Global, an organization dedicated to empowering women in the media industry over the last 8 years. Women in Media Global has positively impacted the lives of over 1,500 women and students worldwide. Her mission: to build 100 Black-owned notable brands in the mainstream media and change the negative stereotypes around the Black community. Hopefully, exploring Danielle's journey, mindset, and abilities have been crucial to her success will inspire you to overcome your own obstacles and achieve greatness. Only here on the Black Caliber podcast, where we uncover stories behind success and the struggles that come with it. If you resonate with any part of this story, please tell us what it was in the comments, leave a like, and subscribe. And anything else that you would like to add to that?
No, you did it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, some of the because that's probably older. So the businesses are now older. So, like, for example, AOI is 15 years old now, and Women in Media is 12. But other than that, everything is, it was good. It was accurate. Yeah.
All right. I try and do a little bit of research.
Yeah. Those numbers are all over the place. Every time I get introduced, it's different, but I don't trip about it. It's still significantly long time in business.
So I want to start with like the beginning. So what really inspired you to become an entrepreneur? Because I'm guessing that was something that didn't just come about later. It's usually something that's in you from jump.
So I actually grew up with older brothers who were entrepreneurial. They had businesses, they had a lot of hustle. And later on, I found out also that my great grandmother owned a catering business. So I think a lot of the hustle is just in our bloodline, and it tapped me. So I was, always very ambitious, very entrepreneurial, and driven to create change, but do things my own way. And so a lot of times when you want to do stuff your own way, probably got to go ahead and create it. And so just being a young person who grew into a woman who lives and thinks outside the box, it just was a natural fit for me to go the untraditional route of being a professional. And so I was just inspired to do my own thing. I was inspired to create opportunities for other people who look like me. And also graduating from Spelman College in 2010 during the recession didn't help either. It actually just reinforced me to go out there and continue to make a life and a living on my own using my abilities. So at a young age, I was very convinced that everything that I need is already inside of me, and that I was super creative and ambitious, and that I can make things happen.
Oh, okay. So you said, right, that you started in the Great Recession. So how was that? Like, how was that influence that really was like, all right, like, I want to launch, AOI?
I wanted to come out of college with something concrete. And because there was really no guarantees, because jobs were not, as abundant as what we would have hoped as a graduating class, I was like, as I'm thinking about this junior year into senior year, I'm like, wow, I need to do something to like secure my own future. I'm gonna launch a business. So I prepared my transition year going, my final year at Spelman, and I took some business classes at Morehouse College. I then also got some mentors who were owning their own businesses already out in the marketplace who could just give me some game. And I just began to associate with like-minded entrepreneurs and people who were already CEOs. And I decided to take that gear off of the dance team because I also was a part of Mahogany in Motion at Morehouse. So I decided to sacrifice that and focus on launching a business so that when I graduated May of 2010, that I had a plan. Like I didn't want to not have a plan. So I said, let me put some stuff in motion. And that's what I did.
Okay. And what did you graduate with as your major?
So my major was a double major, theater arts with a concentration in dance and also African and African American studies.
Oh, okay.
So super liberal arts. Nothing to do with media or communications.
So then what made you go with events and PR then? If you're coming out of school with this liberal arts degree, well, what made you go into?
Well, the cool thing is a lot of people who are in the creative arts, who may perform, things of that nature, we are a natural fit in communications and marketing. So a lot of us go into that route as a career. So I went from not just dancing, not just performing, not just doing choreography on stage, but I began to learn about production and also about putting together events. Because, when you are a part of a show, as an artist, we have to sell tickets. We have to get butts and seats. We have to get the word out there so people know that we have this show and they can come see us perform. So I began to learn the business elements of theater on the other side, of not just putting the art together. And that then introduced me to the world of special events, promotions, and marketing. And I just continued to just follow that path and allow it to open doors for me. And because I'm a person who likes to really operate out of excellence and to do things, at the best of my ability, I always just strive to do very good marketing and learn all the ins and outs of communications and that sort of thing. So it's just one thing led to another. It's really me following my passion.
Okay. So what were some of the biggest challenges you faced starting, especially as a young Black female entrepreneur?
Yeah, when I started my business in 2009, entrepreneurship as a young person, a college student, it wasn't as common for people to just be an entrepreneur and start a business. So I was an anomaly in my graduating class, and I was an anomaly for several years. So I would be the youngest in the room, or the only woman in the room, or the only young Black woman in the room. And a lot of times people would think that I was the assistant, but I was actually at the table as a CEO, as a young Black business owner. And it doesn't help that I look young either. So I had to overcome that ageism of people wanting to say that I didn't have enough experience or I didn't have enough. Yeah, I think it was basically them saying that I was not old enough and I don't even know what that means, but I did not have enough experience because I was young in business. So I had to overcome that by outworking everybody around me, being more creative than the older CEOs around me and being innovative because they're not keeping up with time. They're not keeping up with how things are moving in the marketplace and the new technology and the new opportunities. So I just outworked everybody.
And how did that affect you, mentally? What was your mindset during this time? Where you're
I just always felt like I had to prove myself.
Okay.
Which is not always a good thing. And so that's something that I had to recently outgrow. I really do not have to prove myself to anybody, right? If you can't see the value in me, if you can't see the light that I bring, then that's your bad. We shouldn't feel like we have to prove ourselves to anybody.
Okay. So you started and now you're trying to, so what type of events are you really throwing? What are you promoting this early in your business?
Oh, when I was in college, I was promoting college parties, South Beach, South Beach spring break. I was promoting the clubs, I was the girl at the door collecting the money. Then they moved me from the door because they said I knew too many people and everybody always tried to come to the door and get a hookup. So they didn't let me on the door after a while, but I was a part of the promotions team. So yeah, we was just doing parties. And then I really got into networking. The business mind in me wanted to also do professional events. So I will also throw professional events. We've done some fashion and entertainment events at a young age too, when we was on campus as well. I did a fashion show and David Shan, he had just launched Sleepers for Suckers, like some of his original designs. And he was a part of that fashion show. It was called Fame, Fashion, Art, Music, Entertainment. That was dope.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah, that was dope.
All right, so coming right out of college, so now you were still promoting parties out of college too, or is that when you started stepping into the other avenues?
Yep. So out of college, I had even more time to promote everything. So I was promoting clubs, I was promoting parties, I was promoting business, networking events, conferences, political fundraiser, more fashion, more art, more entertainment, more theater. I was promoting a variety of social activities. Yep.
Okay. And at what point do you feel like you realized like you made it, like you were successful in what you were doing and in your own business and your company?
That's a great question. When I began to get recognized without trying to get recognized, and this is before you can blow up on an Instagram or a YouTube. This is you literally putting in the work and like putting your name out there and like beating the pavement and like showing up. So at around 24, I began to get a series of awards. So I was first awarded as the Young Professional of the Year by the African American Chamber of Commerce of Pennsylvania, Delaware, and New Jersey. I was about 24 when that happened. Then at 25, I was honored by the Philadelphia Tribune newspaper, which is the oldest Black-owned newspaper in the U.S. And they honored me with the what was it called? Top 10 people under 40 years old to watch. I was the youngest person to get honored at 25 years old.
I guess I can take this time. Guys, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Please share, repost, all those things. I appreciate it greatly.
But you said we're good. I'm good. You can.
Yeah, you're good. For the most part, I don't hear too much.
Okay. So then at the age of 26 years old, I was appointed by the governor of Pennsylvania to be a commissioner. So I served as a commissioner for 6 years, which means that I was an advisor to the governor, to other local elected politicians, and I represented the state of Pennsylvania. So I had the ability to bring greetings and to speak on behalf of the governor and be a representation of his policies and programs and movements. And that opened up a lot of doors for me. So I feel like around that age, my mid-20s is when I felt like I made it and I was successful because other people were recognizing me and putting me in position to be recognized without me even having to ask for it or put in a nomination form or anything of that sort. And as a result of that, I began to get a lot of media publicity, a lot of articles being written up about me and like the local press. And so a lot of the media outlets began to follow my career and they documented the process for me. And so that was awesome because a lot of these opportunities you can't apply for. There was no way that I could apply to be top 10 people under 40 years old to watch. Like it was called the most influential African Americans Award in Philadelphia. And then like with the governor too, like being on his team, there's no way that I can apply for that job. They have to see me. And then they called me, the governor's office called me and asked me and invited me and said, would I be interested in this opportunity? And I was like, well, what is a commissioner? I didn't even know what a commissioner was. And I'm on the phone like, what's a commissioner? And they were like, oh, this is this and it's that. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. Yeah, I'll do it. So I'm so young and innocent. And I'm just like, but I'm also so real and authentic. And I think that is one of the things that they really liked about me, that although I did a lot of work in political communications, I show up as an artist. I show up as who I am. So I'm not like a typical person, like in a suit. Like I'm very loud, like I'm very outspoken, and I have a very vibrant presence. And I think that they appreciated that.
Okay. So where along this journey did it evolve into you creating women in media?
So that was like almost immediately. So these companies are like neck and neck. 4 years later, so I started AOI, and then 4 years later, I started Women in Media. So I was fresh home out of college, had moved back to Philadelphia, and I went to a film screening. It was about the Philadelphia art scene. And after, watching the film, and I was going to an event to support young filmmakers and young artists, but there was only one woman represented in the film, and they had plans to really move this film around the festival circuit. And I was offended because I'm like, you can't shop this film around about Philly and it's not a true depiction of my city. So y'all just gonna show art from a Black male's perspective? Like, what about all the women who are artists in our community and who have been artists, like the history and the legacy of Black art that we come from? So I just took that, and that energy that I had, I just ran with it. And I said, we got to do something to remind women to own their voices. Because in my mind, I'm like, in the creation of this film, where was the woman's voice? Was she not heard? Was she forgotten about? Or was she silenced? And that just opened up a whole another can of worms. I began to really research the industry to find out what is happening in the industry. And I began to do interviews and collect stories and bring women together and talk about it. And people were experiencing a lot of discrimination that then later came out 4 years later as the Me Too movement. So we were simmering up to those moments, and I felt it. And I took action and I moved on it. And I'm grateful for that. And that's, something that I want to share with everybody who's tuned in. When you get an idea, especially one that you feel like is super big, or it's like an out of body experience, or it's something that like, dang, I don't know if I would ever have thought about that. That's a God idea. That idea is not only going to change your life, it's going to change the trajectory of the future. And so many other lives are going to be impacted if you take the courage to move on something like that. I knew for sure that was a God idea. Women in Media is a God idea. This is his vision, because I wanted to be a dancer. I went to school to perform. I didn't go to school to be in media or communications or even business. I wanted to be a Lakers girl. I wanted to go on tour with Usher and Chris Brown and shake it down. No, God said, God had more and more work for me to do. And so this is definitely a God idea.
Yeah, I feel like that's super powerful. And so at this point, you're 20-something young, and you're running two businesses. So how are you balancing your professional responsibilities and your personal life, especially with the demanding nature of what you're doing and how out there and on boots on the ground you have to be?
Well, the cool thing is, I was a full-time entrepreneur. I did not have a traditional job. I didn't work in corporate America. So I had all the time in the world to invest in my business and to figure out how to grow it and what we needed. Because I also did not have children. I still do not have children, and I was not married, and I still am not married. So my time and my investment goes into building my legacy and creating, the opportunities that I do throughout my company. So it was fairly simple to balance. I will say that at one point I became overwhelmed with it, and I did not have a balance of time management, and where I would do too much business and too much work and not enough like just personal pleasures, personal things outside of business. And that led to burnout. So I did burn out in my 20s too, because I was like working crazy hours, like just doing the most, because I guess I felt like I was invincible and that I could. And even though you can, right, we have the ability to work from the sun up to sundown, does not mean that it's particularly healthy, even if you have the time to do it. And so that's what I learned. I have the time to do it, but it's not healthy mentally or physically for me to just work and not indulge in other things and other areas of my life that are just as important. Like, my personal development or my spiritual development, and even some of the things that I enjoy doing for fun. Like, I still love dancing.
Okay. So what were some of the like strategies that you were using to build and maintain your reputation within your market? Especially if I know you're working hard, but it's like sometimes, that's not enough. So what was the plan? What was the mastermind idea behind it?
So for me, I believe in the philosophy. This is my personal philosophy. You always attach the smaller brand to the bigger brand in order to grow its influence and impact, and even the credibility of that brand. So for me, I was the go-to young professional curator in Philadelphia, and I would plan weekly events, networking events. So I began to build out my own network. Also, my email list was being built out. Social media had been come around. I was building myself online as well. And so by me building my own network and hosting ongoing events, that for me, I believe was, my mastermind idea. And I would get sponsors to do it. So I didn't have to come out of pocket, because I had something that these brands needed. They needed access to young professionals. They needed access to millennials. They needed to be able to communicate with us and build relationships with us. And I was the person who carried all these relationships and had the following to bring the millennials out. So I was able to create networking experiences on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, through venue partnerships. I had like residencies at venues where I could do events at any time. I also was a leader at the African American Chamber of Commerce, and I launched the Young Professional Initiative there and became a director there, and was able to then build relationships with corporations because I was affiliated with the Chamber of Commerce and they were sponsors of our events. So I was able to throw these like amazing parties, networking parties, and like not spend no bread, spend everybody else's money and get the party popping. So it was a genius idea. It was a genius idea, and people still to this day. I saw a young lady from Philly at the podcast summit just recently, and she said, I met one of my best friends till this day at one of your women in media events. Remember you had that sponsor, Kiki Vodka? I became friends with him. He's my best friend now. I was like, wow, that's crazy. People done got married, had kids because of these environments and these ecosystems that I've created.
That's dope. Like, that's just, I'm sorry, I got a little taken aback. That's like, that must be a great feeling to be able to like say that. Like,
it is. And the only reason I know is because the people report back when they see me, they tell me their stories. I wasn't thinking, I at the time, I wasn't thinking how far the introductions will go and like what it means when you create connections for people. I wasn't documenting my journey in that way or even thinking about it in that way. And so to be able to collect the stories over time is very encouraging, because you don't always know what you're doing, right? The effects and the impact of what you're doing might not be immediate, but at some point in time, those blessings are going to spin the block.
Oh, okay. So with this current like representation and this narrative shifting in media, how do you feel like you've either affected it, or do you feel like it's a positive, like it's going in a positive way? It may not be. Like, what are your opinions on that, on this like consciousness shift?
I think that women in media needs to take up more space. In particular, my Women in Media company needs to take up more space and get a little bit more louder in sharing what our values are, and to, yes, speak up about consciousness and speak against the degradation of women. And so for me, that is my next level challenge. I feel like we need to do more. I particularly need to do more.
Okay. So when you do step away, what legacy do you feel like you really want to like leave behind? Be like, this is mine, I did this. What do you want to be said?
I think first and foremost, I just want people to experience a very positive person. a person who was kind, who had good energy, who always brought just good vibes. You know, I want when people think about my name, I want them to smile and laugh and say, yo, she was dope. Like, her energy was crazy. Like, that's what I want people to just know about me as a woman, as a citizen, you know, of this world. When it comes to my professional work, you know, I want to have an archive of the stories of the women that we've been able to tell their stories, and the opportunity to break talent through the platforms that Women in Media is creating, and the opportunity to create more businesses and incubate more media companies, more executives, more owners, because they were empowered through resources and tools that we gave them that were available. So, you know, I want us to raise up a class of conscious media, of women who believe in modesty, women who believe in just, you know, respect, and men who support that as well. And really challenging those negative stereotypes, you know, about the Black community and about women. I want all of our work to say we're against that, and we stand for the preservation of our voices in the most positive way possible.
Okay, that's great. And what's next for you? It could be personally, in work. Like, what's next for you?
For me, next is 100 Distinguished Women. So Women in Media is doing a road show where we are taking our podcast, Women in Media Global, on the road to different locations, different states. And we are bringing 100 women together, women who deserve to be celebrated and honored. And we're putting some talent on the stage, we're recording some shows, and we're raising money. So we're very, very excited about the opportunity to work with more students and to bring Women in Media to the college campuses of HBCUs. So we're working diligently to figure out how to just get into the HBCU space. I know HBCUs have strong media programs, have strong radio programs, so we want to be involved with the students. We want to bring more women and young students into the programs that we have, and want to build that out. So that is certainly next. I look forward to gracing more stages, being on more mics, being able to build out my speaker business and do a lot more like strategic consulting, more coaching, and more consulting and strategy work. So we are looking to do something at Art Basel this year in December in Miami, and also it's popping up with some amazing corporate sponsors who are going to be popping up through our podcast, through our road shows, and our HBCU programs.
All right. And so basically giving back. You're just looking forward to just giving back.
Social impact. Yes, I am so excited about social impact and about giving back. That is definitely what brings me a lot of joy today.
All right. And are you reading any books? Is there anything, like any books that you would want to like recommend anybody watching?
That's so funny when people ask me what books I'm reading. I am reading the Bible, okay? I am in the book of Ezekiel, and so I literally read through full chapters. Through full books within the Bible. So far I've read Job, Ecclesiastes, Proverbs, Psalms, Songs of Songs, and now I'm reading Ezekiel. Outside of my Bible, which I read every single day, I do have another prayer challenge that I'm reading. It's called Draw the Circle by Mark Batterson. And so it's a 40-day prayer challenge. So it's great for anybody who is looking to establish a habit of prayer or need support in that area. So I'm reading that with a actual community. I'm reading that with a prayer community. Every morning I wake up at 5 a.m. and I am on a Zoom call with about anywhere from 75 to 95 people who love God and are excited to pray. And we get up and we pray, and we're reading the prayer challenge together. So those are the two things that I'm currently reading. Outside of that, like I do a lot of studying on sales. So anytime that I can get my hands on books that is teaching sales or me taking in a lot of YouTube content to learn about sales. I'm very invested in just being a better salesperson as an entrepreneur.
All right. That's dope. I always like asking people what they're reading. I feel like what you're reading says a lot about you. So what's your favorite book that you like in the Bible that you've read so far?
That's a really good question. I think that Proverbs, of course. Proverbs. I feel like Proverbs whipped my butt. I read Proverbs and I was like, dang, God, you just felt like you was coming at me a little bit. But Proverbs whipped my butt. So that's part why I'm not going to say it's my most enjoyable. Psalms was very, I think, it was very vibey. It gave me very uplifting energy when I read through Psalms, and it's very poetic. It's a beautiful book. I just loved how it made me feel as I read it, and it just opened me up. Proverbs whipped my butt though. Probably gotta go back and read that one again.
I tried reading Psalms. It was a little confusing for me. I would be like, I just had to remember it's a poem, it's a song.
Exactly.
Because I'd be trying to read it like a story. I'd be like,
yes. Yeah, you know what? I actually read my Bible with ChatGPT. So whenever I read through a chapter, I will go to ChatGPT and ask GPT, what is the meaning of this chapter in plain language? Who's speaking and who are they speaking to? And how is this relevant for my life today? So it breaks it down for me. So I'll be like, oh, okay, I see how this relates to me. Because sometimes, you're reading the Bible and you're reading about kings and prophets and they're doing crazy stuff. And you're like, how does this even make sense for me? But it's always like an undertone. So, maybe you can try ChatGPT.
Yeah, I might have to do that. And with that, it was wonderful having you on our podcast. Looking forward to hopefully collabing and doing more things in the future. Is there anything that you would want to leave off with anybody who may be watching?
Yes, I just want to encourage everybody to go after those ideas, right? Don't abort your visions. Don't abort your ideas. If you are given an idea or if something drops into your spirit, I believe that is God telling you to act on that idea. And when we act on our visions and our ideas, it is always going to point us in alignment with our purpose. And so you get the most fulfillment out of life, no matter where you are, by doing things that make you purposeful, and it will fill you up. So I just want to encourage people to move in the direction of their passions and their ideas. And sometimes it's atypical. You might think that how am I really going to make this happen or sustain myself? It will happen. I am living proof at 35 years old that I have never worked a job, and I have the most incredible life, and I've been able to live in different places, travel with my business, work with so many different clients, and I started at 19. So, and I have been able to sustain, invest, and make money, and just enjoy. So go after those ideas that you have.
Yeah. And lastly, can I just get you to say that this is the Black Caliber Podcast?
You are tuned into the Black Caliber Podcast, and I am Danielle P.
All right, and thank you. Distinction at its finest. All right.